a fantastic real estate panels coming up of a bunch of family offices speaking. But before that, we're going to talk about world-class fintech from Michelle Lee from Hashkey. Michelle, do you want to introduce yourself and then pull up your presentation?
Great, thank you. Thank you, Marty. It's actually a real coincidence because I actually, my first job in the financial industry was with Swiss Bank as well. And I've actually been with UBS for over 25 years. I was actually a computer scientist by training. And I was actually one of the first guys or girl who started off, who was hired as a computer science person onto the London trading floor of Swiss Bank Corporation way back. Now, I was quite lucky to come in the early days of the derivative market and really build up a lot of the trading systems, etc. And over time, I actually worked in Tokyo, then in Hong Kong for the last 20 years with UBS. In Hong Kong, I was actually running the capital markets business and the China investment banking business for UBS. What's very interesting was that my career kind of went full circle. I started off being a technologist, and as a senior banker, the last 3-4 years of my career was really dealing with fintech company, technology company. There was a lot of new tech companies coming out of China in terms of insurance. Obviously, we all know Tencent, Alibaba, electrical vehicle. I was involved in a lot of those IPOs, and also a lot of pre-IPO funding, the private rounds. And that's where really got me excited about coming into this space. And so 2 years ago, a client of mine, the Wanshan Group, called me up and say, hey, we've got this opportunity. Do you want to come over? So it's a very exciting journey for the last 18 months for me. And I just want to share what we're doing. I'm based out in Hong Kong. Obviously, we have offices in Singapore, Tokyo, and we have a group of people in Palo Alto as well who look out for deals for us. I just want to quickly maybe introduce what we do and share with you some of the exciting stories within our space.
Fantastic. And let us know how things are going in Hong Kong as well. Thanks.
Great. Yes, it's a lot of ups and downs. Let me just start sharing the screen. Perfect. Let me get this up. Whoops, wrong one. There we go. I hope you guys can see the screen clearly. My name is Michelle Lee. I'm Executive President for Hashkey Capital.
It looks good.
Great. Now, I just want to kick off this whole discussion with blockchain. I guess you guys have all heard about blockchain. There was a big investment boom a couple of years ago around crypto. Everyone kind of got excited, and then we have a big bust. The question is, well, why invest in blockchain right now? Is it the right timing? Who should I do it with? And what's the right way of looking at this? The way we see it is, I think with blockchain in 2020 really echoes where internet was back in year 2000s. There's a big paradigm shift from what we know as internet today, what we call the Web 2.0 to Web 3.0, where there's a lot of innovation that's happening within that whole area, which I can go into a little bit more detail later. Secondarily, I think Facebook, Alibaba, all these people have started coming into the space. I mean, you have Libra, Alibaba just announced N-Chain through N Financial just at the time of when they're preparing for one of the largest IPOs on the planet. It's an area that they're very focused on, and it really highlights the potential in this whole area. And we've seen very significant institutional inflow into this space. $2 billion only is a small number back in 16, 17, and last year it's around $7 billion. And we're seeing that accelerating extremely quickly. The other very exciting thing is really about central bank digital currency. I think we all hear a lot about it, but they are, I mean, China being one of the countries, Singapore, I think the US government with MIT, et cetera, really looking in this space. It's going to impact the way we deal with our money in the long run. The partners, who are the right partners to collaborate with when you're looking at the space? I think you need to go with people who really understand the space. And I must say that Hashkey and our parent Wanshan Group were one of the first corporate investors into this area. And very early supporter of Ethereum back in 2015, the very early days of the blockchain business. I think we have deep experience also in implementing blockchain platforms and applications. We're 300 people on the ground in Shanghai building various operational businesses using blockchain. I'll go into it a little bit more detail later. And really the regulatory standards around blockchain is fast developing. You need to work with people who really understand how digital assets are regulated, obviously by the SEC, by the Japanese FSA, the various regulators in Europe, London, etc. Now, how do we deploy this capital? This is a very new space. We are moving into what was traditional VC into an area where you have things like called tokens. You have a lot of the guys or the teams that are doing blockchain development. They don't get paid in cash anymore. They get paid in tokens, and that becomes a new incentive system. And that's a very fascinating space. And you really need to have that whole connectivity into that whole space, the developers to know what's going on and how to allocate a capital across different regions. That's also a big thing. So I'll quickly go through some of these points in a bit more detail. Okay, why now? What is the big thing that people are so excited about? The service economy, as we know, is getting reshaped very quickly by blockchain and distributed ledgers. Those of us who are bankers, like myself, and there are others, lawyers, accountants, their job is going to get impacted very significantly. And this is going to be a whole new market, a whole new, I think, space for new services and other things that will come online. In terms of the second big driver that we're seeing is really around privacy. I mean, we all understand around the web, internet at the moment, data, privacy, people really using your data, my data on a daily basis for advertising, generating advertising revenue. We have no control over. There's a big movement, especially around all the best, the smartest technology guys, the computer guys at the moment out there, really looking at ways to help the consumer get the privacy, control over the privacy and control over the data back. And this is a very big area of change. And this will also, then you can have digital payments, you have digital assets coming online, you have new ways of creating new business model. That's nobody have ever seen before. Just like back in 2000, nobody thought a company like Facebook would exist. I think we're kind of at a space where this new technology will create a lot of new companies that I don't think you and I would have imagined would be possible. Now, the Holy Trinity, this is stuff that people talk a lot about. And big corporates are really looking into this. Look at IoTs, blockchain, AI. How do you re-engineer the whole business process, the whole client experience, the whole consumer experience? And this is kind of, I mean, there's a little chart there with, you have obviously 5G with Internet of Things, you have robotics, big data, AI. These are all catchy phrases that everyone gets. There's the data that's in the middle. And the verification of data amongst all these systems become extremely important. And you have big data, you want to train your AI system, you want more data, you want to be able to get other people's data. If you're JP Morgan, you want to be able to use Citibank's data for your training of your credit scoring. But then there are privacy issues. How do you do that in a way that protects the privacy of the users? That's where blockchain comes in. Now, obviously, the last page are all about big pictures. Everyone gets it. But then people say, well, is it too early? There are really 5 points. The technology of business adoption is really moving very quickly. As we can see, Ethereum has really moved to the next phase. A lot of big players are moving into this space. Clear regulatory framework, that's all extremely important. We're really talking about services right here, where legal regulation becomes very important. And how these digital assets get regulated, disclosure, and the disclosure, there's a big piece around the technology. How's the technology governed? How is privacy governed? And all the governments are really working really hard on getting this framework clear. Just like the early days of the derivative market or financial service market, a lot of these rules are now getting put in place. Institutional investors coming in, I think Harvard, Stanford, Yale, MIT are some of these big names. I mean, they're now potential for, I think, obviously, Bitcoin futures have become extremely popular for a lot of hedge funds to gain exposure. The tools are out there now, whereas 12 months ago, they weren't really there. Now you see CME, Beckett, all these guys are futures. on a lot of digital assets. Widespread commercial application, that's all coming online with JP Morgan, Facebook, Wells Fargo, and a bunch of Chinese players really putting these things into work. I think the last thing is really the printing of money by the central governments has really driven people like Paul Tudor Jones and others to really take a close look at the Bitcoin as a way to hedge against inflation. As mentioned, internet in 2000, blockchain in 2020. I think we're getting it's quite a similar parallel in some sense. And you do already see a large number of unicorns out there. Coinbase, R3. These are names that have really grown very significantly and backed by very, very credible players. Some of these are actually tokens. Some are issuers of tokens and equity. How to play in all these different instruments? This is quite a complex space. Partner Group has estimated that blockchain would deliver around 21 billion in business value added in year 2020, and would grow at a CAGR of 66.8. This is a very, very large upside in terms of real addressable market. So who are we? Hashkey Group. I'll just very quickly run through this. As mentioned, Wanshan Group is actually one of the earliest and largest private enterprises in China. Very low key. The original business is actually in the automotive industry. It's actually one of the biggest, one of the top 20 Chinese investors in the US. Its own A123 and Fisker Automotive, as well as around 21 manufacturing facilities in the US. The core business is the car component business. Is also one of the largest family-owned businesses in the world. They also run various family offices, and throughout that period, they've really expanded into agriculture and then to financial services. And within financial services, the Wanshan Group actually currently have banking license, insurance license, trust license in the greater Shanghai area. And over the years, they've really gone very heavily into fintech, into big data, into payments, and then in blockchain investments. Now, we have within, this is very quite a global map as well as an Asian tilted map. I think in terms of blockchain technology, a lot of the investment has been in the US initially, and now we're really shifting into the global markets as more applications come online. And then also corporate partners in terms of Tencent, Alibaba, names that you know, and Nomura, and obviously a lot of the US players as well, and the universities in developing space. Now, as I mentioned earlier, what's differentiate, I think what makes my job interesting, and instead of joining just a financial firm that's doing pure investment, what we do here is we actually we're one of the largest development team for blockchain applications in China. A lot of the work actually is done around supply chain financing, around smart cities, data infrastructure. A lot of these are already up and running products that's out there that have the Ford subsidiary in China is using our product. DBS is one of the biggest banks in Asia, based in Singapore, is a big user of our product for basically supply chain management and supply chain finance. And that really is a big deal in a market like China, where the little guy had very little, I think, banking support, and a lot of the verification of data was very difficult. And the technology has really helped them. There are a lot of other stuff that we're using for provenance, traceability, etc. But this is, I think, it's a differentiating factor. We actually know how the technology is used in real life industrial situations. Then the second leg is really the digital asset, where the blockchain is used in a financial arena. Obviously, you have Bitcoin, you have different stores of value. The way we look at it, we're not just a Coinbase or a Binance where we're facilitating trading. What we are looking to build, because our parent is already a fully licensed financial institution, they're actually looking at doing this in a very highly regulated way. We are working in Tokyo, Hong Kong, Singapore, with the regulators in forming new regulations and also applying and in many cases granted licenses for all specific businesses. So we believe we're a front runner. I mean, obviously in the US, Coinbase and others have already started that journey. In Asia, Hong Kong, Singapore, Tokyo, everyone's starting that journey as well, and we're definitely a front runner in this space. So we do obviously the trading, capital market, asset management, and other things. The way now, how from an investor, we have, as mentioned, we've started investing in this space back in 2014, and we have the group through the helping, providing liquidity, providing listing services, and others who have really helped a lot of our project growth. Now, the key.
Michelle, can I just jump in here for 1 second?
Sure. Yes.
Sure. So, quick question. So you are asset managers of digital assets?
That's right. Yeah, digital assets.
So does that include tokens, or is it just primarily cryptocurrencies?
We currently have 3 funds. Our first fund is really focused on token. We also have some cryptocurrency, but we're a venture capital type fund. We're really investing for the long term. Our second fund has been really more an equity focused fund and a combination of equity and token.
And what's the assets under management right now?
We have around $200 million under this. I'll just quickly go through this.
Gotcha. Okay.
And may I cover some of these details. We have 750 opportunities we looked at, which we have invested in around 35 of them. Our current NAV is around $181 million. Now, this is, we've really started around 18 months ago. We are originally really a subsidiary within a big family office. Now we have essentially made this into a licensed proper asset management business based in Hong Kong.
So you spun out of the family office, basically.
That's right. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And these are the major track record: Ethereum, Polkadot, BlockFi. BlockFi is really one of the hardest, I think, thing out of New York at the moment in terms of really changing the way prime brokerage services can work. And LightNet, a big Thai project for payments in Southeast Asia.
Great. And Michelle, just so you know, you've got about 7 minutes left.
Okay. Very quickly, the big focus really of the way we look at our technology or our stack, we look at the underlying infrastructure, then the protocol, then this is where the early stages of investing in blockchain came in. A lot of people are really looking at the protocol and Bitcoin. Where a lot of exciting action is happening is really in the applications and service provider layer, and that's where a lot of stuff is actually happening. Very, very close to policymakers, the markets, the community within. We're the leader in Asia Pacific. And I think Asia you can't ignore, because this is where a lot of the actions are actually happening. A lot of the, I think most of the projects that are coming out, that are exciting, are out of China or the rest of Asia. And there are a lot of use cases that's coming out. The team, we're based in Shanghai and Hong Kong. Dr. Shao and myself, there's the investment committee. We have our a very strong bench of expert advisor, people based in Singapore, in the Silicon Valley, to help us in deal sourcing and a lot of other things. We currently have our third fund that we're raising at the moment. Our first 2 fund is really much more geared towards the Asian market. Our third fund is much more traditional VC fund with a 10-year period and also open to US investors as well. Our geographic location, we'll have 40% of our asset in US project, around 40% in China or Asian projects, and 20% in the rest of the world. So it's a very unusual, I think a lot of the funds out there in this space tends to be quite US focused. We're one of the few funds that actually have a lot of China, Asian exposure as well, and also in a sort of done in a very sort of high quality, highly regulated fashion.
And this is a master feeder structure?
That's right, exactly. Yes.
And where is the headquarters of the offshore?
It's Cayman. And then
okay.
The managers we're located in Hong Kong. Yeah.
And it's a venture capital fund. Where do you invest primarily, geographically?
Geographically, we're looking at around 40% US, 40% China and Asia, and then 20% rest of the world.
Great.
So yeah, and I think as mentioned, we focus on crypto service providers as well as underlying protocols, as well as a lot of the new applications that are coming online. I think a lot of the really cutting edge technology is a lot in the US, but the applications, etc., a lot of them are going to be in Asia because of the nature of the markets.
Great. Can we go back to the prior slide?
Sure.
Great. Okay.
So I'm open to questions if anyone has any.
So do you think this has, I mean, the big question for venture capital, has there been repricing? Do you think there's been repricing in the blockchain venture world?
I believe yes. I've seen, I mean, the last 6 months, I've had a lot of people knocking on our doors, really quite desperate for money. I wouldn't know what it's called repricing, but at least back in March, April, a lot of people got flushed out of the market. The weaker players actually got out or had to close down or ran out of money. Then I think the last months or two, we really see a recovery, right, of the crypto market. Then that has driven the valuation up again. So I think the smart money that got in a few months ago had it quite good. But if you look at valuation, it's not expensive versus the crazy days back in 17, 18. I think people are a lot more realistic with where things are.
Well, fantastic, Michelle. Listen, thank you so much. I don't have any questions that have come in through the Q&A, so I think we're going to move on to the next panel.